What happens when a woman decides to reclaim her beauty and her confidence after years of hiding in the shadows? Diem takes her first bold step, supported by her loving husband Toan, as he brings her to a luxurious spa where admiration and envy collide. Her transformation stuns everyone, but not all eyes are kind. Behind the polished mirrors and fragrant oils, a cruel hand plots to destroy her newfound radiance by tampering with her skincare. Who could be so ruthless? Stay with us, subscribe now, and follow Diem's journey where beauty becomes both her power and her danger. Diem had spent years blending quietly into the background of her own life. She was the kind of woman who always put others before herself, who worked hard, who carried the weight of responsibilities without complaint, and who had grown used to neglecting her own reflection in the mirror. Her beauty had once been the subject of whispered admiration, but with time, her youthful glow seemed to fade beneath the shadows of exhaustion and selflessness. Yet deep inside her, there was always a voice that longed for more, a desire to reclaim the radiant woman she knew still lived within. It was not vanity that drove her, but rather the realization that beauty was not just skin deep, it was also the language of confidence, strength, and self-worth. One morning, as sunlight spilled across the curtains and kissed her face, Diem stood before the mirror longer than usual. She noticed the faint lines near her eyes, the dullness of her complexion, and the tired look she had carried for far too long. For the first time, she didn't look away. Instead, she whispered to herself, "It's time for a change. It's time to choose me." That small affirmation lit a spark inside her. It wasn't about competing with anyone or pleasing the world. It was about finally honoring herself, about embracing the woman she could be if she chose to step into the light again. Toan, her husband, had been watching her journey silently, patiently. He had always loved her, through every storm, every hardship, every moment of weariness. But in her eyes, he saw more than she herself realized. He saw the woman he had fallen for, the one whose laughter used to brighten entire rooms, the one who carried not only grace but also quiet power. And so, when Diem confided in him her desire to change, to take better care of herself, Toan's heart warmed with pride. Without hesitation, he promised her the best care, the finest guidance. He wanted her to see herself the way he always had. That weekend, Toan drove Diem to an elegant, high-end spa located in the heart of the city. Its glass doors gleamed under the golden sun, and as they walked hand in hand, Diem felt a mix of nervousness and excitement swirl in her chest. She had never stepped into such a luxurious place before. The marble floors seemed to glow, the air carried hints of lavender and jasmine, and soft music played like a lullaby in the background. For a fleeting moment, Diem wondered if she truly belonged in such an environment. But Toan squeezed her hand gently, reassuring her without a word, and in that gesture, she found courage. The staff greeted her with smiles, their professional voices polished yet warm. Toan introduced her with pride, almost as if he were presenting a precious gem to the world. Diem felt her cheeks flush under the weight of curious glances from the reception area. Some eyes sparkled with genuine admiration, while others carried an unspoken envy. She could feel it, the silent tension in the room, the kind that always accompanies beauty when it reemerges, when it challenges the ordinary. But she didn't let it dim her spirit. She lifted her chin, allowed herself a small smile, and walked deeper into the spa, ready for the transformation she had long delayed. For the first time in years, Diem was not simply living for others. She was reclaiming her own identity, her own worth, her own beauty. This was only the beginning, but in her heart, she knew she had already taken the most important step, the decision to change. The moment Diem entered the treatment hall, a hush seemed to ripple across the room. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but she felt it in the way conversations paused mid-sentence and eyes flickered in her direction. Reclining on plush chairs or waiting for their appointments, other clients turned their heads as if drawn by an invisible magnet. Their gazes were layered with different shades: admiration, curiosity, envy, even disbelief. For years, Diem had been invisible, yet now, standing tall beside Toan, she carried an aura that made her impossible to overlook. The soft lighting of the spa seemed to caress her features, highlighting the renewed glow in her eyes. The staff escorted her to a private section. But even as she walked, Diem could feel the whispers trailing behind her like shadows. "Who is she?" one woman murmured under her breath. "Look at the way he treats her," another said, gesturing toward Toan, who remained at her side with an expression of quiet pride. Their words carried both awe and resentment. Toan's devotion was evident in every glance, every gesture. He held her bag for her, guided her gently, and listened attentively to every instruction given by the staff, as though ensuring nothing would disturb her comfort. To many of the women present, that tenderness was as dazzling as Diem's emerging beauty. They saw not only her transformation but also the rare love she inspired from her husband. And for some, that was unbearable. Their eyes hardened, lips pursed, and smiles curled with bitterness. In their hearts, they told themselves she did not deserve such attention, such adoration. They had been regular clients at the spa, draped in luxury, pampered week after week, and yet here was Diem, a newcomer, shining brighter than all of them combined. Diem, however, remained oblivious to the undercurrents of hostility. For her, every step into this new experience felt like peeling away layers of weariness she had carried for too long. She sank into the treatment chair, the soft leather embracing her, while gentle hands began cleansing her skin. She closed her eyes, breathing in the calming scent of essential oils, and let herself believe that maybe this was what self-love felt like: quiet, soothing, empowering. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to rest without guilt, to be cared for rather than always caring for others. Meanwhile, Toan sat nearby, his eyes never straying far from her. He was a fortress of calm, but inside he felt a swell of emotions: joy, protectiveness, and a quiet defiance toward anyone who might question her worth. He noticed the glances, the half-hidden sneers, the envious eyes that followed Diem's every move. But he also noticed the admiration, the way even the staff seemed entranced by her gentle elegance, her quiet radiance that required no extravagant jewels or bold displays. She had always possessed this grace, the world was simply seeing it clearly now. As the treatment progressed, the transformation became even more evident. A gentle glow returned to her skin, her cheeks flushed with a healthy vibrancy, and her eyes, when she opened them, shone brighter than the soft chandeliers above. She looked into the mirror placed before her and, for the first time in so long, smiled without hesitation. That reflection no longer felt like a stranger. Yet beneath the soft music and fragrant oils, not all hearts in the spa were at peace. The sight of Diem's beauty being restored, paired with Toan's unwavering devotion, planted seeds of resentment that grew darker with every passing moment. What began as envy simmered into something sharper, something dangerous. In the shadows of polished glass and fragrant candles, someone was already beginning to think of a way to dim the light Diem had just reclaimed. But beauty, as radiant as it was, often carried with it the weight of jealousy. And in that spa, behind the polished walls and soft music, not every gaze that lingered on Diem was harmless. Among the women whispering and watching, there was one pair of eyes colder than the rest, eyes that did not see her transformation as inspiring, but as a threat. The more Diem glowed, the more this bitterness festered. What others only whispered in envy, this person twisted into resentment deep enough to crave destruction. As Diem leaned back into the gentle care of the esthetician, enjoying the soothing strokes of a cleansing mask, she had no idea that in a corner of the staff's preparation room, Someone was plotting. Shelves lined with gleaming jars, bottles of serum, and trays of carefully labeled creams stood like an altar of luxury. But in the hands of the wrong person, they became weapons. A small vial, filled with a clear yet corrosive chemical, was unscrewed. Its sharp scent, masked quickly by the aroma of lavender, hinted at danger. With calculated movements, the saboteur tilted the vial and poured just a few drops into the moisturizer that had been set aside for Diem's treatment. The substance blended invisibly, leaving no trace of tampering. Outside, the atmosphere remained serene. Diem closed her eyes, unaware, and Toan scrolled through his phone idly, though his attention never truly drifted from her. He glanced up every so often, his gaze softening at the sight of her relaxed expression. To him, this moment felt like a victory, a gift to the woman he loved. He wanted nothing more than for her to feel cherished, safe, and beautiful. Little did he know that safety was already slipping through their grasp. The staff member assigned to Diem's care returned to the tray of products, her hands reaching for the jar that had been tainted. She was unsuspecting, humming softly as she prepared to apply the cream. But then, as if fate intervened, she paused. Toan's sharp voice broke the silence. "Excuse me, is that the correct product for her skin type? I remember you mentioned something gentler earlier." The esthetician hesitated, blinking in surprise. "Oh, yes, sir. Let me double-check." She replaced the jar and reached for another, unaware of how narrowly Diem had escaped harm in that moment. Toan, meticulous and protective by nature, had unknowingly disrupted the sabotage without realizing it. Diem, eyes still closed, remained blissfully ignorant of the danger that had been hovering just inches away from her face, but the saboteur, watching from a distance, clenched their fists. Foiled once, their envy burned hotter. Who was this woman to receive so much attention, so much devotion? Why should her beauty be celebrated while others, who had spent fortunes chasing perfection, remained unnoticed? The anger twisted into something darker, more determined. If not today, then soon, her radiance would be ruined, and her confidence shattered. Meanwhile, Diem opened her eyes, catching her reflection once more in the mirror across the room. She saw a woman she was only beginning to recognize again, a woman whose glow was no longer just external but rooted in the quiet strength of someone who had chosen herself. She smiled softly, unaware of the storm brewing beneath that tranquil surface. Toan leaned closer, his hand brushing against hers. "You look beautiful," he murmured, his voice low, meant only for her. And in that moment, Diem believed him, not because of the spa, not because of the treatments, but because she felt it inside. Yet as the day came to a close and they prepared to leave, a chill lingered in the air, unnoticed by them both. Somewhere in the shadows of the spa, resentment remained alive, waiting for another chance. The war against Diem's beauty had only just begun, and the question was no longer if but when the darkness would strike again, and who, exactly, was cruel enough to wish her harm.